Alrighty, today we're going to be continuing where we left off by implementing our pagination. We have this implement search feature here. I just real quick want to merge this branch. We can come over to our code maybe. We should have the compare and pull request. We can compare this, pull request it, and move on with our lives. We can then come over to our issues real quick and create a new issue. This one will be a issue for implementing pagination, right? Implement pagination. Submit this issue. We can then come in here and create another branch. Click create branch, copy this one. And I do still need to come in here and actually do this search feature one. So for this one, I'm just going to close this issue for the search feature. We should be good to go. So now let's come over to our terminal. To our terminal, and I'll paste in our 2 lines that it gives us to switch over to branch 50. We can then hopefully get started. So I'll come over here. Okay, I forgot to actually merge the pull request. So let me go ahead and do a quick little update here so you can see how to fix your problems if you ever do something as dumb as what I do. So I now have the branch 50 that is now outdated from branch whatever I'm on. So what we can do is we can just merge the main branch into the side one. So we'll do the main branch as our compare, and our branch, our base branch will be branch 50. So that'll pull in all those changes for us. Hopefully we can then create this pull request, quickly set this up. You don't have to do this through like GitHub. You could also do this locally. I'll just say merge main into 50, something like that. Create pull request. We can then scroll down and merge this real quick. Just the easiest way for me to clean up my mistake. And then I should be good to do a get pull from here, and this should pull in our latest changes, which should cause these files to at least exist again. So now let's go ahead and let's actually do this pagination. So to do the pagination, what we're going to do is we want to start off by coming into our terminal. We're going to do a bundle add for the Kaminari gem, which is a pagination gem from Rails. If you're not familiar, you can come over here, you can look for the Kaminari gem and go over to the GitHub page for it. I think we've covered it before, but it's pretty easy. You just add it to your gem file, and then you have the ability to paginate different models by just calling like .order, .whatever, right? .page, and then like set a limit. So we're gonna be doing that. We're gonna come into our post controller first. In our post controller, we want to set this up to use a couple pages per post. So you can either do this in the models, usually like in the post model, you can set the number of like things per page. I'm going to do it here though. It's just going to be set to 2. The reason I'm doing it here is because I'm going to be returning it with our JSON down here. After I do that, I'm then going to do this at posts equals post.order. After we do that, I'm going to, instead of doing this post with images equals map, I'm going to just say at post with images equals paginate posts, with at posts and posts per page being passed in. So what does this paginate post do? Because we're going to be replicating this logic in both the posts and in our search controller, this is where we're going to be abstracting things into our application controller. So in our application controller, we're just going to say, here's a private method. And then for this private method, we're going to paginate our posts. So our paginated posts are going to equal to post.page with our params for our page, which we get by passing this back from our front end. So like we're just assuming this exists. And then for our .per, that's going to be equal to our posts per page, which we're setting to 2 here just so we can test this. So we're saying, get the page that we want to be on, and then we have like 2 posts per page. We can then do our paginated post.map, where we map this to a augment image call. The augment image is just going to be what we previously had. Like if we come into our search controller, it's just going to be this logic right here where we do the at post.map, do post. If the image is attached, merge it with the URL for, otherwise just merge a nil image URL. We're going to do that same thing here. It's just going to be augment with image for a post, and then it's just going to do that. Couple things to note. It is important to remember that the returns are implicit. So if you don't see like a return keyword, it's still returning whatever this is in certain cases. The other thing that I want you to think about is how we're able to use these methods that are marked as private in our application controller inside of our post controller, right? So how are we able to access these? Because that's something that I think a lot of people take for granted when they try and do a lot of their abstractions, is they might miss out on how you're able to do that. But okay, we're going to call that paginate post method. We can then say total post count is just equal to post.count. We need that because of some of the math we're going to be doing on the front end for our pagination. The final thing we can do is we can render a JSON with our posts, which is going to be our post with images, a total count, which is going to be the total post count, and the per page, which is going to be our per page limitation right here. What this information gives us is it tells us how many total posts there are, as well as how many posts per page we have. Let's say there's 50 posts total. We know there's 25 posts per page. We now know that there should be, 2 posts per page. We now know there should be 25 pages. Alternatively, if there's 25 posts per page, we know that there's going to be 2 pages because we have a total count of 50. We have a per page of 25, and 50 divided by 25 is 2. If there's some kind of weird remainder, like let's say this is, 24 posts per page, we know there's 25 total posts. We're going to say that the number of pages we need is the ceiling of that. So we're going to say like our num of pages is equal to the ceiling of our total post count divided by our posts per page, if that makes sense. This number might be 25, this number might be 24, which would give you something like ceiling. This will be ceiling of 25 divided by 24, which is going to give you something like ceiling of 1.04. And then we take this and we round it up to the next integer, which is going to be 2. So that's how we get to 2 pages total. A little bit of magic there, but that's good enough for us. What we can now do is come into our search controller, because our search controller can now also be refactored. We come in here, we do the same thing. We say, all right, we need to have 2 posts per page. We have our @post, which is equal to this @post.where blah, 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 nobody cares. We can then say, well, we need to have posts with images equal to paginate posts, total count equal to @post.count. And then instead of doing the posts with images and this render JSON, we can just render our JSON just like before, which allows us to clean up both controllers simultaneously. There's still some stuff here that's being duplicated that I don't quite care for. But for now, I think this is good enough. And this will allow us to have our backend functioning as we need it to when we start moving into the front end, because the front end is going to require quite the refactors. Let's go ahead, let's start our server real quick, and let's come over here to some, like our homepage, for example. I'll hit Control-Shift-R, and then we can look inside of our console here. And what you'll notice is we're running into some issues now because post.map isn't a function. This is where we start to run into some issues with how we had the code previously structured. Because we were under the assumption that we were just going to get our posts back, we would iterate through whatever our response was. So our response was just equal to some array with like post 1, post 2, etc. Now, however, our response is going to have a dot post, which is what we need to map through where we do our whatever logic to handle the array. Because we also have a response.total count. So we're going to have to come into the like post index and to some of our services and make sure that we're handling that logic appropriately. So let's come over here to our client, our SRC, features and posts, and our post list. And then inside of our post list, what we want to do is come down to the bottom, I believe, inside of our post map. So this is where we're doing it. We say post.map with each post having like a post ID, etc. But this post right here is being set a little differently in my code as opposed to your code. So what we do is in our posts, we have the posts right here, but we also set the fetch posts. We need to come into our post data hook, our use post data hook. And inside of use post data, we need to add a couple other things. We have posts loading an error. We're also going to have to add a total posts and a per page, which we'll set to 0 and 10 by default. But these are of course going to change. For our search term, or sorry, for our parameters here, we're also going to add in a page, which is going to be set to 1 by default, just so we default to the first page. Then we have our let data, we have our search term, we fetch all posts, and we fetch the search term. But for the search posts, we're going to pass in a parameter for the page. And then for our fetch all posts, we're also going to pass in a parameter for the page. If we get back some data for the posts right here, we're then going to do this. So if data.post, because remember we're returning .post, .total count, and like num per page or whatever, then we can set the post to be data.post. which is now going to allow us to loop through this. We can then set the data.total count and the data.per-page to whatever we would like. The final thing we have to do is going to be down here because we have the error being returned, but we also want to return the total and the per page, just like before. This is now going to allow us to use this in various locations. But if we come over here and we refresh, actually it's not going to yell at us, but I really wish it would. We don't actually have these arguments set up in our search posts or our fetch all posts, right? So if we come into the post service, our fetch all post does not take in a page. And I don't think our search posts, yeah, it just takes in the query. It doesn't take in the page number. That said, we have the searching hopefully working again, right? So we can search for test, and we'll get those. Although I don't think that returned, yeah, it's only returning 2 items of the total amount that we expect because our parameters per page is 2, right? So there's actually 4 results here, but it's only returning 2 of them because we have it set to 2 per page. So if we had the pagination, we would now have 2 pages visible. But for now, this will do because we can now see all of our results. We can see everything's still working. We've just moved over to our pagination. We've also refactored our controllers to be a little bit cleaner by putting some of the stuff in the application controller, which does technically just move it to a different problem area. But for now, this is fine. So what I want to do now is I just want to take a break here for this video. And then in the next video, we'll add in the ability to navigate between the pages and do some code cleanup in a couple different areas. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.